Welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour. It's the Doug and Tyler show this evening. James is off doing his thing, and I have returned from my short sabbatical, but I'm here and I'm with Tyler. Tyler, what's cracking up there in Minnesota, man?
Well, we had our county fair. Yeah, we go crazy with our county fairs. The kids went on some rides. It was really fun. Kids really enjoyed it. I had a Philly cheesesteak, which I haven't had in a while, and it was pretty good. Probably not up to Tim standards. Tim Keller.
Did you see that the gyms in Philadelphia was on fire? It's one of the best places for a cheesesteak, and everyone was like all sorts of sad.
Oh, that's not good. I feel like Tim's brought that up. That specific one, but
yeah, it's like low key, like the one of, if not the best cheesesteak place in Philly. If it's not Pat's or the other freaking one.
That sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had one of those, and then my parents were like, "Hey, you guys want to go out to eat?" So we went to this. It's like a biker bar dive, and we went there.
Was John Taffer there?
It was it was literally a hole in the wall, but it was really good. And we drove 40 minutes there and 40 minutes back for it. My parents really hyped it up. I wanted to recommend it.
It was worth the drive.
It was.
Nice. You spent more on gas than you did on food.
Yes.
I respect that.
100%.
What's gas in Minnesota at right now?
$4.14. It's dropping.
That's about the same as here. They're just going to get us used to the new normal of $4, which I hate, but whatever.
Yep.
That's another podcast you can listen to whenever you'd like. Someone's having a podcast about like setting the new normal.
Gas, yeah.
And setting, yeah, exactly. I've had a good weekend. It's been pretty low key over here, so nothing crazy to report. I'm going to be off to Atlanta, not to a Falcons game this coming weekend, so I will not be on the pod next week.
Neither will James.
I know
it's going to be
you're going to have to find one or two guests. I think you can probably manage.
Maybe I could just do a solo.
I don't mind a solo pod. I actually thought about talking to you and bringing back the Guru Game Guidance and having it on the DHH feed.
That'd be something. I know people would enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of positive reviews on it, so we'll see.
Possibly you.
So just wanted to give a shout out to our sponsor this week. It's Fantasy Points. It is officially redraft season. August 1st is tomorrow, or today if you're listening. Congratulations. And that, to me, kicks off the official redraft season for most people. Not the diehards like me, who's been doing redraft since, Scott Fishbowl stuff like a month ago. But for the most part, August 1st kicks off the redraft season. And who better than to participate in that redraft season than to go on to Fantasy Points? When you use code DHH22, you get 10% off a Fantasy Points subscription. 90% of subscribers made the playoffs last year and the year before. It's even going to be better this year because they are locked and loaded. They got the lowest price in the industry. They've got an analytic powered draft tool. There's a DFS optimizer if you like to play DFS like I do. There's all sorts of awesome articles. There's podcast network on there. There's articles by Graham Barfield, who's amazing. Scott Barrett, who's one of the people held in the highest regard in the fantasy industry. So you can check out Scott's work as well. If you're looking for rankings, anything, cheat sheets, anything you want is on there. Head over to fantasypoints.com, use code DH22 and get that 10% off today. All right. So this week we are going to talk about the Wild Wild West. And if I'm Cool Mo D, I go Wild Wild West. Because the West in both the NFC and the AFC is an absolute fantasy treasure trove this year with all the moves in the offseason, which we'll talk about. It is absolutely bonkers. But before we get to the West side, which is the best side, by the way, don't fight me, Biggie. We're going to talk about some news. So we've got a little bit of news. It's starting to heat up a little bit more. We've got some training camp stuff too. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on that because that's that's a one-way trip to Narrative Street a lot of times with training camp. I remember Terrell Pryor's one-handed catch that bounced him up like 3 rounds. Like, oh my God, he's amazing. So none of that. But the news that we had, there was a big free agent signing. Everyone was speculating, where is Julio Jones going to go? Is he going to be a Green Bay Packer? Is he going to be a Dallas Cowboy? Everyone's kind of waiting. And then all of a sudden, Julio Jones is a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. There's footage out there of Tom Brady throwing him a touchdown, Julio with the toe tap in the back of the end zone. So obviously this has big fantasy implications because Mike Evans was a fringe first rounder in redraft. Now in Dynasty, he's not quite as valued as much because he's going into his 9th season and as awesomely productive as he's been, probably a future Hall of Famer, to be honest. Mike Evans in Dynasty isn't quite as valuable. But this is going to impact Mike Evans, I think. It's going to impact Russell Gage a little bit, possibly. And then Chris Godwin is not on the PUP list. He is in camp, but it's more of a precautionary so he can participate in walkthroughs and stuff like that. He's not out there running routes and all these things just yet. So I think that's one of the it's part of a strategy. I still don't know if Godwin's going to be ready week 1. Nobody knows, but I think Tampa Bay is just being a little safe here. So Tyler, when you saw that your boy, former Falcon legend Julio Jones, one of the GOATs, signed with Tampa Bay, what was your initial reaction to this Tampa Bay passing game and Julio's fit there with Mr. Tom Brady?
So for me, it just screams they need a body. They weren't really excited with Godwin and his question marks. So they went out, they got Julio. They beat the Packers to it because the Packers, there was some speculation they could be the ones to sign. Now they beat him to it. Julio's back in the NFC South. I don't think you should be expecting what a lot of people are expecting. Now,
I agree.
From what I saw in Tennessee, he was done. He was a shell of himself. It didn't look like he had much to give. Now, the plays I'm seeing in Tampa, he could be healthy. He had some, lower body injuries last year when he was with Tennessee. Now that's what he's known for. How long will he last in Tampa is my real question. How many games will he actually play before he gets hurt? Now, people are sleeping on Russell Gage, who I've seen, reports that Gage looks outstanding in camp. He's been one of the best players in
Can't
Tampa
cover
Bay.
him is what they've been saying.
Yep. And for me, this Julio signing is dropping Gage's redraft value and price in Dynasty. And for me, that's the true player I think is the winner because in my opinion, I came out and said it. Julio should be the 4th target on this offense. He's going to make a few big plays here and there. He will. It's who Julio is, but it's who he is now. He's 33. He doesn't have the speed he used to.
He doesn't have that catch and run ability like he used to. Yeah.
Yep. And even if he does, there's a great opportunity for him to get hurt. He's at that age apex where we see a lot of receivers just fall off. And if they don't, they get hurt real quick, real easily. So for me, I'm actually more out on Julio. I saw he's getting traded for 2nd rounders in 2023.
I would think that 2nd rounder all day long.
All day.
Yeah.
For me, I am loving this for the value of Godwin. I'm loving it for Mike Evans, even, who I said I was out on. But hey, if the value's there, go get him. And mainly Russell Gage.
Yeah, and also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed tight end Kyle Rudolph as well. So don't know what that's going to look like between Brait. Mike in the chat says, is Julio going to fill the Gronk role? I don't think so. I think Gage is going to get most of those targets. I think that they brought Rudolph in and Brait. I'm just staying away from all. I'm taking away. I'm not taking any Tampa Bay tight end. I think that Brait was a hot pickup as soon as Gronk retired. Then they go out and sign Rudolph, who, he's a little bit older too. I just don't think they're going to feature the tight end in this offense. I think those targets are actually going to go to Russell Gage over the middle of the field and Godwin when he returns. I think that's where they're going. And also we'll cover it in a minute, but Rachaad White popping in pass drills for Tampa Bay. So that could be a part of their offense as well. Leonard Fournette had a ton of targets last year. So maybe they mix in White, and we'll touch on that here shortly. So the other big news this week, we've had some extensions. So that 2019?
2019. Yep.
2019 N'Keal Harry receiving class. God damn it.
Is he going to get signed? Is he going to get a big extension?
No, not at all. Have fun on the Bears, buddy. So we've got DK Metcalf signed just a few days ago. The thing I love about these deals, they're both 3-year deals for DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel. So they're signing. They're going to be in camp starting tomorrow. Everything's good to go. No holdouts, nothing. They're 3-year deals for both guys. So I think that's really advantageous, not only for the player, because they're getting paid $70+ million with $50-something million guaranteed, which is a great payday. But DK is going to be a free agent again when he's like 27 or 28. And so is Deebo. Deebo's a little bit older, I believe. But these guys are going to be able to cash in a second time. Yep. So it makes a lot of sense for the team, just in case like Deebo was a one-hit wonder. And I don't think he is because he's a great football player. But they're protecting themselves from a 6-year, X amount of $1 million. So I think it's smart for both. And I think we're going to see more of this happen. It started with Terry McLaurin getting his extension because his was only for a 3-year as well. So I think this is the new trend in the NFL is that young receivers that are 25, 24 years old, they're going to have no problem doing 3-year deals at an annual average value of over $20 million with, 75% of it being guaranteed money, because that's what affects the cap a lot too, is that guaranteed money. They can manipulate the cap with the more guaranteed money there is in there. So, Tyler, what do you think about the long-term prospects over the next few years? I know DK is a little bit more of a wild card because we don't know what the future at quarterback looks like. And Deebo Samuel, we'll talk about it a little bit more when we break down the West, but it looks like Trey Lance is the man now. So what does that look like for Deebo? Because I think that's one of the hardest offenses to kind of figure out potentially.
Yeah, Deebo, getting paid, he's going to be a huge part of this offense. But what people don't remember is he's had injury issues. Last year was kind of the first year he's been really extremely healthy. I think he missed a game, and it was at the most least opportune time, I think, is during the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah.
But for Deebo, he had an outstanding season. He was wide receiver 3 or
he was
two.
in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah. Which everybody loved the talent years and years, but it was just the injuries that held him back. So if he can stay healthy, this contract will be worth its weight in gold, because they need a guy like him, and especially with Trey Lance, who can move around. Like I said, we're going to talk about the West, so I won't get too deep into it. I think Deebo deserved it. But for the other wide receivers, I got to talk about N'Keal Harry. How sad is he feeling seeing all these deals? Plus,
how sad am I feeling as a Patriots fan?
He is.
Let's really tap into that.
He's dealing with drops in Bears camp already. Apparently, he's caused a few interceptions for Justin Fields, dropping the ball and then pretty much.
I won't be surprised if he doesn't make the team. They traded very little to get him. If he can't put his stuff together, he's a great blocking receiver. Cool. But I could see him getting cut and being a free agent and then sitting for a while, because his game just hasn't translated for whatever reason.
That's sad. Crazy. And talking about the other receivers, like DK Metcalf, he's getting paid. Like, that guy got his money. He's with Seattle. That's the main issue. Drew Lock apparently has shown accuracy in camp, but Geno looks to be winning the job. Who knows what's going on there? They could get Jimmy G.
I'm buying the dip on DK.
They could get Jimmy G. Once again, we'll talk about him. We're talking about the West. Mm-hmm. So I'll hold off on a lot of these players, but congratulations to all these receivers. I agree with you. The 3-year deals seem to be the new thing, and it's good for both parties. But I think a lot of it is due to age. Terry McLaurin came in older. Deebo came in older. DK, he's only 25, but I think Seattle just doesn't know what their future holds. So maybe if they
can secure a franchise piece, you have to do it, and then try to figure out quarterback maybe after this year, or maybe they trade for Jimmy G. Who knows?
And then maybe re-sign DK after this is up, because let's see what we got. Yeah, we got this monster of a receiver. We need to hang on to him. Let's just see what we can do at quarterback within the next couple of years. If we can't figure that out, why pay a receiver when it's kind of pointless? So it worked out for both. And I think a lot of it, the 3-year deals are due to age. So like players like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, I think they have 5-year deals. I think they'll have a little longer deals like AJ Brown was 4.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's play a little bit of a game here, which is fun. It is training camp season. I know I got really excited. I haven't spent a lot of time on Twitter for most of the summer, but once training camps open, I found myself gravitating and getting the energy again once football started to happen, even in a training camp capacity. So that has kind of injected it into my veins, and I've been much more active and excited than I have in the previous months. So it's great to have that back. Thursday night, we get the first preseason game. I believe it's the Las Vegas Raiders against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes, sir.
So that's just going to kick us off, and then we're going to have games. And then before we know it, the season's going to be here. So let's talk a little bit of training camp, and I want to play a game with you, Tyler. I want to play a game. I want to play training camp, hot or not. So I'm going to give you a player, and I'm going to give you a breakdown on what they've been up to, and you tell me if it's hot or if it's not. So the first one is out of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. It's George Pickens. Alpha dog George Pickens. He got that dog in him, not like Zach Wilson, but he got that dog in him, and Pickens has been flashing in camp. Now, there's some stats out there. He leads the team in receptions and yada, yada, yada. Chase Claypool is currently injured. Looks like he might be the big slot is what they're kind of projecting him for, possibly.
That's Claypool, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So, George Pickens, hot or not?
Hot.
Very hot.
And it's the talent. We all had him as like a top 3 receiver talent-wise, But there's a lot of people that were, oh no, the off the field issues. He started to fight. And I remember back then I said, it's just because he's super into football. Like, this is his life. He
He's a
loves to play the
passionate
game.
dude.
Yeah, he's very passionate. And we've all played sports. I played hockey and almost got into a fight in a beer and brat league. Like, that's kind of what you want, though. You don't want somebody that's like cowering and being like, no, I don't want to do anything. Like, show some energy, show a little fight in you. And for me, George Pickens is that. I've seen many videos of George Pickens making catch after catch. There was an incomplete pass where he was flat. It looked like he was Chris Angel style floating on his back midair. Crazy catch. When he came down, he dropped it. And he was pissed at himself that he did not make that catch. Like, that's what I want to see.
You want to see the competitiveness even
100%.
in a training camp environment.
Yep. And his body control in every single play I've seen has been insane. Like, top notch. And also Claypool, big slot, that's where he should be. You want to know why? He played tight end in college. What does he know?
Incredible mismatch with his athleticism.
Yeah. What does he know better than playing the big slot and being like, hey, give me these smaller slot corners, or even bring your big
Claypool
corner
and
in.
Freiermuth over the middle.
Oh man, and Deontay still can get his. But yeah, Pickens, I think, is the here. I know we have a hot take episode coming up soon here when all of us are here, and we're gonna do that before season. But I think Pickens could be the wide receiver one out of this class.
Yeah, I like it. Now, speaking of which, Drake London is also flashing in camp, making some athletic catches, creating separation. Everyone's, they're banging their chest. My wide receiver one in this class. Okay, cool. I'm still not. I've never been a huge Drake London guy.
Yeah.
I like what I see because I'm seeing, that separation. But it's also against like a 5'9" corner who's like not the fastest guy ever.
Alfred, who is a guy who is very. I think he was the CFL MVP. He has some accolades in the CFL.
He's all right. Don't get me wrong. He's all right.
Yeah, and there was a couple plays that showed him against another receiver. I forgot. He made a huge pass breakup, and he's a good corner. But yeah, I mean, it's not against AJ Terrell, who is a shutdown guy. But yeah.
So with London, he's a Falcon. This is your team.
Yes.
Hot or not?
Okay. So in hot or not, that
do you get a lukewarm?
Sometimes you could do the 1 through 10, or you just click instantly hot or not. Like that if I can remember right, because it's an old website back when I was in high school, and that's how it was used. And I think it was a system like 1 through 10, which is a terrible, terrible thought. The more you think about it, like
in today's environment,
yeah. So if I were gonna have to go London, I like what I see. But I'm not sure I like what I see. Like, people are all hyping Mariota, like, oh, here it is. Now, Mariota to me has not looked the best. There's a play Pitts made that was a touchdown that people are like, whoa, see Mariota? Like, the throw was low. Pitts had to use every ounce of athleticism to grab that ball. It was not great. So there's a couple plays where I've seen Mariota like, I'm not sure. So that's mainly my focus, is like, I'm not sure about Mariota. But Drake London, he pulled a nice double move on Alfred, and the catch, he used his size. He went and got the ball where Alfred could not reach at all, and was like, okay, this is mine, and looked good doing it. The double move was good. The speed looked good. He outran the corner. So for me, I would go about an 8 on the scale. So I would go more hot than not.
More hot than not. All right, let's do some lightning round here so we can wrap this up and get on to our West talk. Let's go out of hot news out of Chicago camp. Velus Jones looking like he's building some rapport with Justin Fields. If there's one thing that Justin Fields does really well, is throw a nice deep ball. And Velus Jones, albeit old, is fast. He's a 4.3 guy.
He's an athletic prime already.
He's in his almost. I don't care. I think the dip on Velus Jones is because he was 25. He's older than XYZ receiver that came out 3 years ago. Whatever. But that's why you got him in the 4th round, and sometimes later in rookie drafts. His draft capital is good. Opportunity could definitely be there. Outside of Darnell Mooney, it's a crapshoot of what they got going on. So Velus Jones, hot or not?
Oh man, I'm gonna go hot because I've heard Pringle is dropping a ton of balls. N'Keal Harry's dropping a ton of balls. Cole Kmet looks great.
I love Cole Kmet.
Darnell Mooney looks good. Everything looks good except Pringle, N'Keal Harry, and Velus Jones is showing up. So for me, I like it. Fields apparently has shown growth from year 1 to year 2. Now, I think the biggest thing here is I think we've all overrated the how can I put this? I think we overstepped on the hate for Fields. That's what I'll say. Because despite it being a bad offense, the coaching could be good
This
for
was the
him.
lightning round, Tyler.
I know. So for me, I'm gonna go hot on Velus Jones.
Thank you.
But I think we're all hating on Justin Fields way too much this offseason. So
yeah, there's
I'm gonna go
definitely been
hot.
a dip in Justin Fields' stock because they didn't really address the offensive line and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
All right, next one we talked a little bit about earlier was Rachaad White in the passing game. They said he's a weapon in the passing game, according to the Pewter Report, which is all hot news on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm gonna go nuts.
We know Leonard Fournette. He's slimmed down a little bit, so he's not like Fat Thor anymore. He's more like in between Thor. So what do you think about Rachaad White? Will they use him in the passing game, hot or not?
Nuts.
Okay.
I just think
I think
there's
it's
too
all
many
Leonard
mouths.
Fournette.
I think there's too many mouths to feed. They paid Fournette.
Not the mouth to feed thing.
For me, it's not.
They throw the ball like top 5.
They also lost their center to a big injury, who could be back later in the season. Now there is some good offensive centers on free agency that they could go pick up, but for me, it's a not. I just don't see it with all the target distribution already, especially bringing in Julio. So for me, I'd say not.
Okay. Paris Campbell. I know he's like the forever just the tip tease player. We've all liked the athleticism. He ran the 4.31 at the combine, but the dude, he just can't stay on the field, but he is flashing in camp with Matt Ryan, creating really good rapport, making athletic plays. Reports out of Indy is that he's the number 2, hot or not.
Hot until he's hurt. So that's pretty much it. I think he's gonna put up good numbers for maybe 3-4 weeks. Ugh. Hopefully he stays healthy, because if he stays healthy,
I hope so.
He is probably one of the biggest deals in trades right now. If you were to trade for him right now, well, I don't know about right now, but in July, man, his value was nothing. You could have got him for nothing. So for me, Paris Campbell, for the weeks he's on the field, is going to be a very solid wide receiver 3 or 4 for your dynasty team. So if you can go get him, what would you pay for him right now?
Paris Campbell, I'd give a third.
A 2023 third. I think you'd have to give maybe 2 or a late second, possibly, with the hype.
Late second? Yeah.
There's a lot of hype right now. For me. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Okay. I know Doug and I have him on Trade Addict 7, which we are contending champions. So we don't
defending champions.
Yeah. So we don't really see him as a starter, but it's a nice piece to have. Like, okay, if we need him, he's there. Yep. Yeah. 100%. So if you have him on your roster, congratulations. If you don't have him, it's worth poking around.
All right. Now we're really going to speed it up with a super lightning round, which will mean it'll be like regular lightning round speed. All right. Travis Etienne, the star of Jacksonville camp, hot or not?
I would say hot.
Yes.
Because what else is there to be like, wow?
Although James Robinson not on the pup list, so maybe we'll see what happens there. But yes, Etienne, to me, it's all the hotness. His value continues to climb. I think last time I checked, he was RB 15 or 16 in DLF starting ADP.
Evan Ingram's drops.
Oh God, Dan Arnold season, boys. All right, let's go to Tennessee. I've got 2 notes. Traylon Burks, he's breathing. He's looking fine. He's making plays. Healthy. Yeah, he's diving for catches. He's looking nice. And also, same thing out of Tennessee. Kyle Phillips, rookie out of Stanford, I believe. And the only reason I know that is because Bill Belichick personally scouted him. Surprised the Pats didn't take him, because I saw him run routes and I was like,
it was UCLA.
UCLA, that's right. I was in the right state at least.
Yeah, close.
Kyle Phillips ran routes that looked exactly like a New England slot receiver. So I'm not surprised that Bill Belichick scouted him. But Kyle Phillips could be the number 3 there with Burks, Woods, Phillips in the slot. They got Austin Hooper. I'm kind of digging Tannehill. Everything's kind of looking up for Tannehill in the passing game. Are you hot or not on Burks and Phillips?
Phillips, not.
Okay.
Not yet.
I mean, he's dirt cheap. If you drafted him, you got him cheap.
Burks, I think, is hot. And I think they're going to use him like we've seen in camp. Post, curls, and 9 routes. Like they're not going to ask him to do too much right away. Get him used to the NFL game. Hey, best thing about Burks is he came out and he said, I was wrong to expect, what I expected. He got healthy. He's eating better foods. He said he's taking care of himself now, which is nice to hear that he's growing up and maturing a little bit, because when he came in, apparently he wasn't taking it that serious. But for me, I'm about the growing up and how he's taking care of himself, and it's showing. Like, you haven't heard anything about the asthma or anything. He looks good.
Awesome. All right, let's get to the West, and I'm going to start with the AFC. And I'm just going to go in a random. I'm going to punch this into a random team generator. That's not true. I'm not doing that at all.
I also want to bring up the West. And remember what happened in the West about a couple weeks ago was the Trophy Smack.
Oh,
live,
in LA. Yeah.
The live SFB. For me, that was amazing to see. Like, that's a party I want to go.
Bowling. There was like pool tables. I was like, man, I need to be at that.
Yeah.
We've been arguably we've been associated with them maybe longer than anyone.
Since they started up, we have been.
So I think, Matt, use it as a write-off. Get us out there. I will gladly draft an SFB 13 from the Trophy Smack Studios or corporate headquarters, world headquarters if you want to get real fancy.
Prestige Trophy Smack Worldwide.
Wide.
But no, it's trophy season, everybody. Now, what's better than rolling into your redraft league with a belt or a trophy? There's nothing better. And you know what?
No, not really.
As much as you hate giving that trophy to the winner, it makes that league better. A passing trophy makes the league so much better. I know from experience. I've seen my buddy post a picture of slapping his championship name on our trophy. And you know what? I was in the title game with him. I lost, and I hate it. There's nothing like that rivalry and wanting that trophy back. It actually promotes trading for win now players. Doug and I are in a trading battle in a league where we're going for the belt. He had to ship the belt away. He's going for it. Now we're just trying to make our teams better because we know it's us.
It's going to be a dogfight. It is definitely us.
It's going to be a dogfight. And that's the best part about it, because when you have that trophy, it ramps things up to 100.
And now that I don't have it, I'm like, I need it back.
100%.
Ship it back to me.
I've got a Trade Addict 7 ring here, and there's I love it. I don't have anything else with the Trade Addicts League. We got our money, we got our payments, but you know what? I would honestly rather have a trophy to remember that championship by, because we built that thing from scratch, it seemed.
Yeah.
So for me, having a trophy and a ring, but hey, you know what? You can have both. You buy a trophy, you get a free ring by using code DHH ring. That's the best part. You get that free ring. You can hang on to it. You can give it to the past winner and make that a thing. Do whatever you want with it. So use code DHH ring, buy yourself a trophy or a belt, and get yourself a free ring. And while you're at it, get some draft boards.
Absolutely. It is draft board season, boys and girls. Let's go. All right, let's go to the AFC West first. And I'm going to start with the division champions, the continuous division champions, who've had a lot of turnover this offseason. By a lot, I mean their best receiver, they traded away, Tyreek Hill. We're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're the most interesting team from a fantasy perspective in this division because there's a lot of unknown, right? So they trade away Tyreek Hill. They get a bunch of picks back. Miami gives him the big extension. They go and sign Juju Smith-Schuster. They sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So those are the two main receivers, at least we think. Travis Kelce, he's still there. Even though he's a little bit older, he is still an elite producer at the position, and he should get pelted with a bajillion targets once again. They still got McCole Hardman. They use a second-round draft pick on Sky Moore, who's flashing at camp as well. And then in this backfield, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been one of the largest disappointments. He was a lot of people's 101 just a few years ago, and he's been a disappointment. Now, we heard that last year he had a gallbladder thing. He lost a bunch of weight, yada, yada, yada. Is this the year of Helaire? We don't know, but they bring in Ronald Jones. They re-sign Jerick McKinnon. Darrell Williams is no longer in the picture. And they also they drafted Isaiah Pacheco late, which a lot of people like. He was the fastest running back in the draft.
He's running with the ones.
Everybody's running with the ones at this point. And then of course you have Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes and Kelce are going to be the steady guys. I don't expect their production to really dip at all. But I think these pieces around Mahomes, especially guys like Juju, like he's been a value up until maybe this week because he's been flashing at camp. Because a lot of people love Juju for the first 2 years of her career were pretty historic for production. And then, the next 2 years of his career, He has some injuries. Big Ben just can't do much of anything anymore. His ADOT was terrible, but we see him in training camp stretching the field and catching deep passes from Patrick Mahomes. So I think Juju's price is starting to rise. I find Kansas City fascinating. Tyler, what's your take on Kansas City and some of the moves that they made? And how do you think it's going to play out?
All right, I'm just going to go position by position. Quarterback, you got Mahomes. He's top
You're
3
good.
quarterback. Yeah, you're fine. Running backs where it gets interesting. Now, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The value has dropped, but I'm still out. He didn't come to camp, and he kind of
was on the
failed.
pup list for like a day.
He failed his physically able to perform tests. Like, that's not a good start for me. Isaiah Pacheco is probably the best wild card on this team because he's a rookie. He's super fast, and he's got something that everybody else on this team doesn't have. Ronald Jones, I don't think, has that top-end speed that we saw when he came in. So for me, Pacheco,
McKinnon, though, I think is sneaky because they used him a lot, and he was
PPR.
good.
For PPR, he's so cheap. Like, you could even look on your waivers, and he could be there.
He might be there.
So this running back class could be to the point where you just don't need to worry about it. Just be out. You let somebody else deal with Ronald. Deal with Ronald Jones.
I got offered a late first for Helaire, and I took the first.
Yeah.
Easy. It was an easy trade for me. Like, no brainer. Like, boom, you take him. I'll give me the late. I think I drafted George Pickens with that pick. I'd rather have Pickens.
Yeah, especially with the camp hype that we talked about. But
yes,
for me, this running back whole entire group is just no thanks. I think my hat is with Pacheco and just hoping that hits. Give me the rookie. If he doesn't, hey, you're out of taxi squad spot, and you're fine. Now on to the receivers. This is where it's really interesting. I love MVS for the value. I've seen him make a few good plays. He's going to be their deep threat.
His name is Marquez Value Scandling.
Yes, 100%. That's what the V is.
Right.
And it's just pick your poison. There's no Tyreek, so pick who you want. Everybody's in on Sky Moore thinking that he's going to be it. I have a feeling it's going to take a little bit more time for him to kind of get his feet on the ground in the NFL. So for me, it's between Juju and MVS, and I'm going to go with the cheaper one. That's what this offense is about. I think the nice part is Mahomes going to have the ability to spread it around. He doesn't need to look at one spot and be like, here it is.
And I think that was their Achilles heel is that they knew it was coming to Hill or Kelsey because no one else, McCole Hardman hasn't been consistent. Yeah. Although I think we are kind of forgetting about McCole Hardman. I think he's got a shot to be that field stretcher, Tyreek Hill role because he has the speed. So I wouldn't be completely off on Hardman either. I think he's kind of the forgotten guy with all these new toys. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I think that was the Achilles heel. Like, their offense was easy to figure out and they needed to change it up because it was getting stale.
Yeah,
it was
100%.
still working. They're scoring points, but people were learning how to shut it down.
Yeah, they're just doing that. What was it? The umbrella.
Yep.
The umbrella defense where it was stopping the deep ball. And here you got MVS who could run the deep ball. You got Hardman who can, but they kind of got that basketball team mentality. Juju's in the slot, MVS the big tall receiver on the outside, the X, and then you got Hardman as the Y who can maybe make a growth. And then Sky Moore, who, like I said, a lot of people are really on, and I can't see it year one. So, but that's just me. So for me, the value lies in Kelsey, whose value has dropped, but hasn't. Like, he's another interesting part. It just seems like he's 34 years old. They're going to be 34. His values kind of stayed the same. And if you have him, it's one of those things where, like Derrick Henry, you're probably stuck with him because you're not going to get the value that you really want.
You have to take a realistic look at your team and be like, am I a contender or am I a pretender? And if you lean you're a pretender, you got to move him.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like, you're not going to get what you could even 2 years ago.
Sure.
Which is tough. And that's where the whole entire trading game and trading Russian roulette is do you want to trade him or do you want to hang on to him and get those points? But for me, my favorite player to go out and grab, Noah Gray. I really like him. There's a lot of hype on him last year, and he seems to be the Kelsey replacement. And if that's the case, you are getting a top 10 tight end right now for like a third round pick in tight end.
I got him chilling on some taxi squads for sure.
Yeah, and Mahomes will look his way.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the LA Chargers. They've done a lot of things in the offseason defensively. They bring in Khalil Mack. They've added more beef to that offensive line. They are probably one of the most complete teams in the NFL on both sides of the ball.
Derwin James.
I'm sure they will. They bring in J.C. Jackson from the Patriots, a fairly locked down corner, top 10 corner in the league. So they are serious about making a run at the Super Bowl. And as we look at the fantasy landscape, not a lot has changed with this team. It's still Justin Herbert, an absolute stud. They re-signed Mike Williams to a 3-year deal, $20 million per. Keenan Allen's still there, a little bit older, but still very good. Josh Palmer has been clearly running as the wide receiver 3 on this team. He's probably my most rostered player in Dynasty now.
He's getting super hyped.
Josh Palmer is getting super hyped. At tight end, they did bring in Gerald Everett, who I like, to replace Jared Cook. They do use the tight end a decent amount in this offense, so I think Gerald Everett is a great fit for Justin Herbert. And then at running back, we all know Austin Eckler, who was the RB2 last year, I believe. He's back. And then it was Josh Kelly. It was Larry Roundtree. Probably one of the and Justin Jackson, why he's not re-signed, I have no idea. I like Justin Jackson a lot. But they draft Isaiah Spiller, who didn't test well, slipped in the draft. And I think Isaiah Spiller is like, when we talk landing spots, you couldn't find one that was better for Spiller off the bat. So I love this Chargers team. I think Josh Palmer doesn't break out fully, but if there's an injury to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, Josh Palmer is going to be really, really good and a weekly starter if that's the case. What do you think about the LA Chargers?
I love him. You know my love for Herbert, and that's where it starts. And for me, I think the value here is Isaiah Spiller, because we don't need to talk about Herbert. Herbert's another Mahomes top 3. Yep, Eckler. You know, if you have Eckler and you want to move on from it, it's just like Kelsey. He's at that age apex where if you have him, you're probably gonna have to hang on to him because you're not going to get that true value what he's actually worth.
And I remember I had Eckler. I picked him up as a free agent in UDPL, and I traded him in like second year of his career in a package deal with you, I think.
Yep.
I was on Eckler. I got him free. Imagine that. And if only I had kept him.
He's so fun and so good.
He is.
I shout out to Cecil Lamby and Sigmund Bloom. That's where I heard his name. And that's if you guys don't listen to their podcast, their preseason dynasty breakdowns of each team are fantastic. Kind of what we're doing here. But yeah, the Chargers team, Isaiah Spiller. I know a lot of the bigwigs. I think JJ Zachariason, he's big on Spiller, and I swear I saw a tweet from him or Carter, CD Carter.
Oh, Denny?
Yeah, Denny. I think I saw it from one of them too, that Spiller in 2 years could be a top 12 running back.
Yeah. So, I was smashing Spiller in the mid-second, like in all my drafts, because like, again, it's one of those things, you know, just like we talked about, if a player goes down, like if Mike Williams or Keenan Allen goes down, Josh Palmer rises. If Austin Eckler goes down, you can't tell me that Josh Kelly or Larry Roundtree is going to get a bunch of carries. It's going to be Spiller, or they bring in a free agent. Maybe they bring Justin Jackson back, but Spiller is going to have a larger role. God, no, please. Especially behind that offensive line, which is improved.
Yeah, very improved. They drafted a lineman.
They got the kid from BC, Zion Johnson. Yeah.
And for me, that's what they're doing. They're building the offensive line, and they're gonna, like you said, this offense isn't changing. So for me, Isaiah Spiller's, it's probably still a good value right now in Dynasty too. I don't think he's being hyped or anything, but he's super young, and that's what you got to look at. And his recruiting is super high. He's a 5-star or 4-star guy.
Yep.
So Spiller is a good value right now for the wide receivers. Honestly, I think I'm out dynasty wise on Mike Williams and Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Just I've never been huge on having Keenan Allen on a roster. I don't know why.
He's not a sexy pick, but he's just a rock solid player, but he doesn't have real boom weeks. And if he does, they're 10 receptions for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep. And for me, his value is better with the person who rosters him. Like every single year, it seems like the person who has Keenan wants to first, but I'm only willing to pay like a first and a second. Like the value's never there. Mm-hmm. Same with Mike Williams. There's so many other people that are truthers for Mike Williams, and I just haven't been on it. It just seems like he's such a hot and cold player, and I hate those guys.
It's like Amari Cooper over the years, right? Like boom week and nothing week.
Which is weird for me to say because I just said I don't like having Keenan Allen, which is one of the better
steady. But he's not. But he doesn't have enough. He's just steady, but he doesn't have enough boom weeks.
Yep, 100%
to make him sexy for sure.
So Josh Palmer is also a huge value, like you said. He should get some good targets, and I'm out on all the tight ends. Sorry.
Okay. I mean, I think where you got him and you've held him, like it's a better situation than Seattle was.
Yep.
So that's the way I kind of look at it. Is like, all right, well, he got some life breathed back into
What
his.
would you give for? I'm guessing around a third for Josh Palmer, if you can.
Yeah, I would do that. Like a mid to late third, I think is probably
Spiller would
appropriate.
be. I'd probably give a 23-second for Spiller.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, let's move on to another team that has had some changes and should be another offensive powerhouse. This division is going to be an absolute
So
bloodbath
good.
of points. The Las Vegas Raiders, so they make the big move and they trade for Davante Adams in the offseason. They replace their head coach, who did a great job, the interim head coach whose name escapes me after John Gruden left. But they've got Josh McDaniels now from New England. And of course, the biggest question is, we're seeing reports from training camp about this backfield, and it is very much being treated like a New England backfield with Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake, Zamir White, Brandon Bolden, all in the mix. So that's going to be interesting. I'm kind of out on it, except for Zamir, I think. But they bring in Davante Adams. Hunter Renfrow had a breakout season last year. Darren Waller back to health. My question, I think Derek Carr is probably the cheapest piece of this offense that I want. Like at everyone else's price, I think it's too high, but I think Derek Carr is still cheap for some reason. I think Derek Carr could be his ceiling is a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I think he could 5,000 yards. Like, why not 35 touchdowns? He doesn't throw a lot of picks. He's very accurate. So for me, Derek Carr is the guy I want because I think his price is still pretty sweet. Everyone else, it's going to be interesting because Renfrow is getting a ton of targets. Davante Adams is a target hog. There's Darren Waller. I just don't know how they're going to divvy up the pie in this offense. And the running backs, Josh Jacobs, they didn't pick up his 5th-year deal, so he's pretty much gone after the season. Kenyon Drake, he's shown flashes. He's been injured. Zamir White is, he's got a lot of hype, but he hasn't participated in training camp yet. So that's kind of a mess to me. So how are you approaching the Las Vegas Raiders, Tyler?
So with Carr and McDaniels, I think McDaniels likes this because he looks at Carr and says, this is like 80% of what Brady was when I had him. Brady probably had more kind of confidence into calling the plays back in McDaniel's offense. But Carr, athletic wise, I think actually is a better runner. But I think he can do a lot of things Brady can do. So for me, this offense hasn't really, it shouldn't change much. It's going to run out of the slot. I think Renfrow is a major steal. If you don't have Renfrow, I think he's being slept on. And give me Renfrow for a second and a third.
Who's the third receiver on this team?
I think it's Waller.
Adams, I mean like actual wide receiver position.
Ooh, that's a
Demarcus
good
Robinson?
Question. Yeah, it's got to be, right?
Brian Edwards is gone, so he's in Atlanta.
Brian Edwards is gone. Zay Jones isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Right.
And for me, I just don't want that.
No, I'm good. It's going to go through those 3 guys, let's be honest. Yeah.
And for me, I think the target share goes Adams, Renfrow, then Waller.
Okay.
Now, I think Waller takes the hit, which kind of sucks because we're all big fans of Waller and what he's been through and seeing his career just blow up. But I think it helps him. I think he was just a volume player.
A lot of pressure on him.
Now he could just be a guy who makes big plays in the middle of the field. Give Renfrow the volume. Let Waller be this big play guy that we saw when he was younger and at the beginning of his career. The running backs, I'm not gonna lie, I like the value in all these guys. I think Josh Jacobs is one of the most underrated running backs in the league just because he's a great runner. He's so good. Their offensive line has not been great.
Their offensive line is a problem.
Yeah, and he produced with a bad offensive line year after year. The issue is he's never got those pass catcher, the pass catching role, but he caught more passes than we thought.
Yeah.
So for me, I think Jacobs is just being completely slept on. If he moves a different team,
what would you give up for Jacobs right now?
I'd give up 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Okay, I think that's fair.
Yep, that's around the value. If the person who has Jacobs, I think won't do it because they use that 101, 102
do it
on it. But maybe they're sick of it. Maybe they're just.
I mean, I won't move N'Keal Harry because I use like the 102 on him, so I won't even I won't take anything.
I've heard that.
Going down with the shit
trade. I've heard that argument in a trade. I spent 105. It
doesn't matter what you spent. The value changed.
I've heard that in a trade negotiation, but
that's one of John Bosch's big things. Like, no, I don't care what you paid. The value is different now. Like either good or bad. It doesn't matter. Like
so, I think Jacobs' value is fantastic. Zamir White is still a good value. There's no news, and sometimes no news is good news in training
He could
camp.
be
So
the guy next year. We don't
he
know.
could. I think he will be, and I think they're going to roll with that New England backfield style. They're not going to pay their running backs. They're going to use them and let him go to a different team. But the best thing with Jacobs is if he goes to a different team, they could actually utilize him more. Say he goes to Atlanta next year, and he's all the back that gets everything. That's what we want out of Jacobs, and maybe we'll finally see it. And he's very young. He'll be 25, I think, when he gets his new contract.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Vegas is going to be another one of these fun AFC West teams to watch. And last but certainly not least is the Denver Broncos, who obviously had one of the biggest changes in the offseason at their quarterback position. They went from, a Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater,
oh my God,
a combo package to upgrading to Russell Wilson. Now, they didn't do much else on the offensive side of the ball, but they have a solid line. They returned Cortland Sutton, second year coming off of injury, so that's usually the sweet spot.
Yeah.
KJ Hamler's coming back. He tore his ACL earlier in the season. So KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy appears to be healthy. His legal troubles aren't a thing, so you don't have to worry about that. Noah Fant moved on in the trade to Seattle, so Albert Okwuegbunam, and then they draft Greg Dulcich. So they are surrounding Russell Wilson and Tim Patrick. Can't forget him, best wide receiver 4 in the league. They are surrounding Russell Wilson, and hopefully they will let Russ cook. Now, the big question is in the backfield. We all love Javonte Williams. He's amazeballs. For a while, it was just him, and we were all hyped, and his ADP was at a frantic top 10 startup. Like, it was high. And then they re-signed Melvin Gordon. So that has obviously cooled it a little bit. But, the thing with Denver is, I don't think they lack talent. It's going to be interesting what their game plan looks like and how much they let Russ cook.
And for me, I think they do. I think
they should.
Everything I've heard out of Broncos camp area is that's the plan.
They should stop horsing around and just let him do his thing.
They got John Elway Animorph style morphing into a horse.
Shannon Sharp, his picture on the side of the helmet. Yeah.
I mean,
he looks like a horse.
For me, I think this is right when they got Russ, I think we all were finally, they had the pieces, kind of like what the Jets are now. Hey, we've had this crap and all these good weapons. They finally got a quarterback in place.
Or even Tampa when they got Brady. They had pieces in place, and then they plot Brady in, and boom, Super Bowl. I don't know if that's going to be the Russ impact, but it could. In this division, it's going to be really tough, but it could.
So Russ is Russ. Now, where would you have him for quarterbacks? I would put him at the 6 to 8 range in Dynasty, maybe even 5.
I think 6 to 8 is a sweet spot because you got to kind of adjust a little bit for the age.
Yep.
And he doesn't run as much as he used to. So I think that's one thing that, if he can get back to that and run a little bit more, that would obviously, bring him up a little bit. But I think 6 to 8 is fair for Russell Wilson. I think that's where I'd have him too. That's a sweet spot.
All right. So, I'm going to go right to the running backs. Now, from what I've heard is it looks to be a split backfield again until one of them gets hurt. Cecil Lammy's talked about how he hopes Melvin Gordon gets cut or traded before the season because he wants to see Javonte cook.
We all want to see Javonte.
We all do. But it could be a Nick Chubb thing. We've all been waiting to see Nick Chubb be.
Just let him stand alone.
Be a lone Chubb, and just finally
a man in a room by himself. He's known as the lone Chubb.
The lone Chubb. It could be one of those situations where we just keep waiting and waiting, and it just never
happens,
materializes. So Javonte's value is through the roof. I've actually traded him in a couple of leagues and got extreme value. I've gotten Najee Harris, CMC at prime value. So for me, if you can do that, it could be the option to go do that. He, as good as he is, I don't think we're going to see the 20 plus touches per game. There could be a scenario where Javonte is the first and second down back, and then maybe Melvin Gordon's the pass catcher, which would be crazy to think because Melvin Gordon may not have that juice as much anymore. But hey, he's still a good pass catcher, and they brought him back for a reason because they worked very well last year together, and they got an even better quarterback to support them. So I actually think you should keep expectations low for Javonte. Onto the receiver room. James isn't here to back his guy up, Tim Patrick.
And to poop on Jerry Jeudy.
Yes. And for me, I've actually lowered a little bit more on Jeudy. I want to hear more and see more from him in videos, but it just seems like it's going to be all Sutton. It's Sutton season.
I hope so.
He's the alpha male in this room. Judy's still gonna have games where he gets 8 catches for 80 yards and 2. Like
If
that.
Sutton pops this year, he's my wide receiver 3 in UDPL, and I am going to be a happy lad.
It's definitely a good sign. All I've heard from every single person I talked to from Broncos area, Albright and all the beat reporters, is it's Sutton. He likes Tim Patrick as well, but it's Sutton. He's going to Sutton early and often.
Good.
And they have a very good rapport. And then Judy is, I still don't think people know. Is Judy fully healthy? Is he fully confident in himself? It just seems like Judy's getting in his own way for me personally. Like maybe the off the field thing is still kind of bugging him. I don't know. There just seems to be something that isn't pushing Judy on the right track for his pro career to be on a steady track. So for me, depending on what Judy's value is and what you could get for him, it might be okay to kind of maybe go to the 23 first and be like, I'll take the 23 first for Judy. But I think his value might be lower than that. So if that's the case, I'm holding. I'm waiting for that big game because it will happen. He'll have a couple big, massive games, and because he's going to be the slot.
And we have to remember that all of these games could easily project as high volume passing games, high points scored games, because all of these teams are stacked on offense. I mean, Kansas City has the most questions, but they're going to score points because they have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce amongst, other pieces. Yep. So the AFC West is a gold mine for fantasy points. Yep. And you know what else is a gold mine, Tyler? It's underdog fantasy, because you can make a gold mine if you're going to play some DFS with underdog. And if you do it right now and you deposit up to $100, they're going to match it right away. So, you can play MLB if you want. If you're looking to be boring, that's fine. But if you're waiting to play NFL, you can jump in some rookies and sophomore drafts. You can play NFL best balls. You can do over and under predictions in season.
Preseason stuff will be coming.
Yep, preseason, which is always fun because the guys that we talk about on this podcast make a difference.
Yeah.
Because they're playing lots of snaps in the preseason. Best Ball Mania, the biggest tournament in DFS right now. The winner gets $3 million. It's absolutely bonkers. Woo. Underdog is the number one up and coming app in the fantasy sports world. So make sure you be a part of it. Go and download it now on the Google Play Store or Apple iTunes Store. Again, that is Underdog, and use code DHH and you can get up to $100 matched right away. All right, let's move to the NFC West. And I want to talk about Russell Wilson's old team because I don't want to save the worst for last.
Yeah, I mean, this will be quick.
Yeah, so Seattle, we all know they traded Russell Wilson. They got Drew Lock. They got Noah Fant back. DK, Tyler Lockett's still there. Dwayne Eskridge, is he ever going to be a thing? They spent a second round.
He's hurt again. Hurt again.
God,
yep.
Dang it. And then the backfield, right? Chris Carson retired, so we missed that in the news part, but we're here now. Chris Carson, due to the neck injury, retired from the NFL. So now we have Rashad Penny and rookie Kenny Walker, who caught 2 touchdown passes in training camp. We forgot to add him.
He could catch passes?
The rumors are true. A.J. Dillon can catch Kenny Walker can catch passes.
Yeah.
It's true. He has hands.
Yeah, he definitely has hands. So, yeah, this is going to be quick and short. Kenneth Walker, you had Ken. My bad. Sorry, buddy.
Shout out to the Walker family.
He had a massive value drop off where you could have bought him. I think it's starting to get too little too late. He's starting to get hyped again.
He was the 102 on average, and then he slipped.
102. 109 is what I heard. Yeah,
yeah,
like 109 and stuff, which is insane to me. So
people think Rashad Penny is going to stay healthy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's terrible. And that's another thing. If you have Penny, you're really hoping that he hits. If you're hanging on to him,
you can cash in on that penny and maybe turn it into a quarter.
Or you can put the penny into that machine where it flattens it and creates
we used to put those on the train tracks back in the day.
Yeah.
Flatten a penny on the train tracks.
Yeah.
Small town living, folks.
I hear you. I grew up in a town with 4,000, so I hear you.
You get it.
Yeah, so for me, it's Ken Walker. I think it's not going to take him long for him to take this backfield over. It could also be another, we already talked about him, Javonte Williams type thing, where he doesn't actually become the full-time back. They use other players, which could be frustrating. But if he's catching passes in training camp, that's always nice to see. And he still has value. I think he's a good trade target because his value fully isn't there still because people see Penny there.
And not to talk too much redraft here, but Ken Walker in redraft is a
Oh,
smash in like
yeah.
round 7 or 8. Like,
And also, don't forget this
hello,
team, as even though they lost Dwayne Brown, they drafted 2 tackles early, and that's the reason why they didn't
Charles
go get a
Cross.
quarterback.
He's
Yep.
an animal. Yep.
They didn't get a quarterback for that reason. They wanted to target the 2 tackles. The receivers, DK Metcalf, I think he's becoming a value due to the quarterback. And
Lockett's one of those guys. Again, it's like Kelsey. We talked
so
about like the age
undervalued.
apex is like
Yep.
he's good, but like you got to look at your team and be like, does he fit what I'm doing?
And I still think I still think Tyler Lockett's a trade candidate. He's just so always slept on. He's always cheap. You can get him for a decent price, and
It's
especially with
traded
no
to Green
quarterback.
Bay value.
Yeah, and yeah, I just think with the quarterback room, if you offered a 23-second, I honestly think you could get Tyler Lockett in a couple leagues.
Probably.
So it's worth poking around. And tight end, Noah Fant, no thank you. You've had your chance to show me something. You showed me a little bit, but with Seattle, I mean, you moved teams. No thanks. I just think he's always been so overhyped.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. He's a great, like, if he's a tight end 2 or 3 on your roster, cool.
Yeah,
but he's not the tight end 1 that you need.
I'm pumped if he's my tight end too.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. All right, so let's get to our next team. Let's go to the Arizona Cardinals. Very interesting team here. They just re-signed Kyler Murray, and the chicken shits themselves backed out of the whole clause thing because it was a whole thing. Like, he signed the contract, whatever. I'm not going to get on my soapbox about that. But Kyler Murray,
he doesn't read the iTunes clause either. Oh crap!
Oh man, what did I sign up for, dude? You agreed. So Kyler Murray's there long term. We all know DeAndre Hopkins is suspended for the first 6 games of the season. On draft day, they go and trade for Marquise Hollywood Brown, Kyler Murray's buddy from Oklahoma. So we got the shower narrative already in play. They lose Christian Kirk in free agency. Cliff Kingsbury is teasing us. Says Rondale Moore is going to have a big role in this team.
Oh, don't do this to me.
Do I believe it? I don't trust Cliff Kingsbury for as far as I could throw him, which might be a few feet. And then Zach Ertz returns at tight end, so I like that because he got targeted a lot. But really, the news is this backfield. It's James Conner's backfield. Like, James Conner had an unbelievable season last year, kind of out of nowhere. We didn't know what to expect. He was a late free agent signing, and he was a top 5 running back. And he got passing game work. Chase Edmonds is gone. He's in Miami now. They bring in Darrell Williams. They have Benjamin. They draft Keontae Ingram with a late pick. To me, there's nothing there that's threatening James Conner's role. Now, we all know about Conner. It's all about health. And can he stay healthy? Because he has a tendency to get dinged up. But in this offense, if James Conner is healthy, he's going to be a top 10 running back easily, in my opinion. The touchdown opportunities, the way that he fits in this offense. They just got note that Rodney Hudson is going to return this year too at center. Go Florida State, by the way. Rodney Hudson is a great center. So yeah, the Cardinals, to me, Hollywood Brown's value immediately went through the roof. I don't know. I'm not as sold on Hollywood. I know he's been solid even with Lamar and that non-passing offense in the past. And he had a sneaky, how many targets last year? 130?
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot. So Tyler, the Cardinals to me are probably one of the more interesting teams in the division and maybe even the whole conference.
Yeah. I know we're both all of us here at DHH aren't big Kyler people. We're not fans of him.
As a person, no.
Honestly, if I have him in Dynasty, I'm looking to trade. Give me Trey Lance plus. I traded
for him in the offseason.
Give me Trey Lance plus.
Okay.
If I could do that, we'll talk about Trey Lance here. But as much as Kyler just produces, I don't know what it is about him. But
the last 8 games of the season, every year, it's like
it's tough, and it kind of sucks. So yeah, Kyler, he's a top 5, top 6. But
people have been touting him like he could be the QB1 overall this year.
Yeah,
I guess he could be, but I'm not projecting him that way.
He needs to run a little more, and I think that's where the issue is. He's always hurt. He doesn't run as much anymore as he used to, and when he does run, he's electric. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the foot frequency is crazy with that guy,
and his upper body control to his lower body control. Like, he can move like both parts of his body. Like,
it's weird. It's almost weird.
Ways.
Yeah. So yeah, as much as I don't like Kyler, there's something about him I don't like. He's great for fantasy, but if I have him, me personally, I want a quarterback in a super flex league where I'm like, yes, I have Herbert, yes, I have Trey Lance. Like, give me those guys but just having Kyler, I'm just like, oh god, here comes the last 8 games.
Do you think that part of the reason the Cardinals traded for Hollywood, not only because he's Kyler's guy, because they stink at drafting wide receivers? Remember when they drafted Andy Isabella in the 2nd round?
Hakeem Butler.
I'm hoping Rondale Moore is not part of that,
Oh.
but
But Hollywood, I think, is very slept on. I would give a first for Hollywood. If I still had a 2022 first, I don't know about 2023.
23, I wouldn't.
That's a little iffy. If it was a late first, I would personally. I really like Hollywood in this situation. He's on turf, so he's gonna be able to move a little quicker. So yeah, I like Hollywood in Arizona. He could be a top 12 guy easily. And even when Hopkins comes back, I don't think they're gonna move to Hopkins right away. Like Hopkins is 30.
Hopkins is so once Hopkins was out last year with injury, he is the cog that makes that machine go.
Yes.
We saw it was clear as day to me. Like without Hopkins, they offensively they dipped.
Yeah, but touchdowns wise, because that's all Hopkins was really producing was a lot of touchdowns. He was
but
catching.
even the way that their offense was flowing, you could tell that it was completely off because I mean I love Antoine Wesley. Don't get me wrong, but like without DeAndre Hopkins, they were a shell of themselves. What I saw on the field offensively, they just looked like they lost their binky.
Yeah, no, I agree because the defense wasn't scared of anybody on that team except for James Conner, who proved to himself that he could score a bunch of touchdowns. I like James Conner still. I think he's got 2 years left there of good production. So he's worth a couple seconds if you're in it to win it. Yeah, he's worth the price to pay. But for me, it's the receivers. What do you do? And Rondale Moore, I love. I think he's a very talented player.
He's one of those players that you see him and they're like, just use him the way you want.
And he's got the same foot frequency and upper and lower body like Kyler. Like he moves differently than other people. So if they could just use him correctly, he could explode. That's the thing. We don't think Cliff can do that.
I think Cliff is a fake, quote unquote, genius.
Yes.
Like I don't think he's in the McVay.
He's a fake Vay. A fake Vay.
He's a Fugazi. Yay,
he's a
forget
Fugazi.
about it. That's a James shout out.
Yeah. So the value for me is with Marquise Brown, but honestly, I just want Trey McBride. I think they went and got him for a reason. They spent a second on him. He's a pass catcher. I know Cecil Lemmy called him Chris Cooley, a Chris
I'm
Cooley
okay with
clone.
that.
I think he's more.
Is he eligible at running back though?
Yeah, I think he's more athletic.
Cooley, dual position eligibility back in the day.
I think he's more athletic than him, and I think he's of course bigger.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where the value is. Zach Ertz, he kind of had a resurgence in Arizona. Maybe is the heir.
They signed him long term, but I don't know how much of that deal is guaranteed.
And he was never really extremely healthy at the end of his career in Philadelphia. So we could see McBride earlier than we think. So yeah, that's actually who I'm going for. And if I can go to tight end premium and give a second 2023, I'm more than happy to do so.
Yeah,
because he's tied to Kyler.
He's the real deal, if you will. All right, let's move on to San Francisco, and we'll wrap up with the Super Bowl champion Rams. So San Francisco, big news from them. We didn't cover it earlier because we were going to cover the West. They pretty much told Jimmy Garoppolo, like, go seek a trade. You're done with this team. It's Trey's team now.
Yeah.
Like, this is quotes from, like, Shanahan and John Lynch. Like, he's part of the team. Like, he's at training camp, but he's not doing drills. Like, he passed his medical test.
Wait.
He's pretty much like, thanks for showing up, Jimmy. You've made your appearance. Now go away.
But wait, I was told Jimmy could start this year. What?
We were all told that, but it looks like they are moving on. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with Garoppolo. Maybe teams are waiting for them to release him. We don't know. But I want to talk. I think that the Niners are fascinating to me.
Yes.
Because Trey Lance at quarterback, we all know that he's got just really juicy upside for Trey Lance from a fantasy perspective. Think Jalen Hurts last year. Like not the best passer, better weapons, right? I think he's a better passer, but not the best passer in the world, but can make plays with his legs. He's got a big arm. And that was Jalen Hurts was what top 6 quarterback last year because of that. And he was the most consistent quarterback in fantasy last year. That's what I was going to
say. Yeah.
So you have Trey Lance, you have established weapons. Now they have Debo. He's back in camp. He signed a long-term deal like we talked about earlier. You still have George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league. You have Brandon Ayuk, who, has him and Trey Lance, lots of rapport. Ayuk, remember last year, he started in the doghouse. Everyone was off Ayuk. Then all of a sudden, second half of the season, Ayuk was a top 30 wide receiver in fantasy. So he finished strong. I like Juwan Jennings. You want to talk sleepers?
Big tall guy.
Juwan Jennings is good. Might be my favorite wide receiver 3 in the league that no one knows about. And then at the running back position, now we all know it's a Shanahan backfield. It looks like Trey Sermon's going to be bye-bye. It looks like he's going to get whacked. Elijah Mitchell, he's getting healthy. There's rumors that he's going to get a ton of carries. We'll see. But Ty Davis-Price is flashing in camp. So you like to see that. And they still have Jeff Wilson, who's probably the most boring named running back. But when he plays, he's productive. So for me, just a lot of fascinating. This team with the range of outcomes could be a top 5 offense or it might not be. It's really one of the things, if you believe in the talent on this team, and I do, I think they have that potential. The range of outcomes on the Niners is wild to me. What do you think, Tyler?
100%. I've been on board with Trey Lance for the longest time. And I'm so pumped. I'm ready. I have so many dynasty rosters.
A bunch of Trey Lance.
I have so many dynasty rosters that have been waiting for this. I got to use them one time last year. And you know what? It was great.
It was good.
It was great because you want to know why? When I saw all of these rushing attempts, I'm like, oh man, like if he could break a big one here, that's it. Like he can win you weeks just with his legs. And add on 220 passing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Dare I say this? Now, this may be out of
Should we
left field.
save it for the hot takes?
No. Dare I say, like, comparing San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks with legs, Colin Kaepernick, who is a fantasy, I think he's better.
Yeah.
But Colin Kaepernick, and people forget that Colin Kaepernick was a good fantasy quarterback.
100%.
So that's what I look at Trey Lance as, like a better passer, but maybe not as much rushing upside, but I think he can be close.
No, I completely agree. And it's crazy because Kaepernick had a weird arm throwing motion.
The angle, yeah.
Trey Lance does too. Lance does too. But it's how they produce this crazy arm talent. Michael Vick didn't have the greatest arm motion. But you know what?
Phillip Rivers. He had the ugliest, and he's like one of the all-time best passing
100%
yardage.
I don't care how you throw the ball unless you're dipping it like Blake Bortles. Then I care. But but Trey Lance, I've seen videos of him throwing in camp, and it's this wonky arm throwing motion, but he's accurate. He's throwing it, chucking it down the field. And yeah, he's thrown a couple interceptions, which people are actually making a big deal of. But you know what? All quarterbacks have thrown picks in training camp. It's because they're working on their negative things. So it just.
And you take risks in training camp because it's not a game.
100%. And you're working on.
Let's see if I can fit into this tight window. Okay, I couldn't. Good to know.
Yeah. 100%. Or, okay, I need to throw it to the other shoulder next time. Or that's what you do. So for me, I'm in love with this Trey Lance upside. Now we're going to running backs. Ty Davis-Price is a player I didn't think I'd have too much of, but I have a good amount of. I secretly
the league that I have Elijah Mitchell in, I got Ty Davis-Price at a value, and I felt, you know what? Like I'm going to play the Shanahan roulette. Yeah. I might as well have both.
He's young. He's fast enough to where he can break away big runs.
Big kid.
He's a big kid. He's 230, And the one thing I didn't like was for me, he felt upright. But then I watched more, like after he got drafted, I'm like, I need to see a little more tape. I watched some tape again. I'm like, you know what? This kid, like they had, like he had the team on the back. Like LSU is known for the passing attack, but not this year. It was Ty Davis-Price. When he was in, he was the offense.
Yep.
And Boutte, of course, who, we'll talk about next year in that class, which is going to be a good class.
Boutte rocking everywhere.
But yeah, it's Ty Davis-Price, I think, is going to be a value because Elijah Mitchell, as we've seen, as good as he is, he's always hurt. He's not big enough to carry a full workload. He's 205.
He's like questionable every week.
Yep, he's 205, and he runs like Thomas Rawls. That's the issue. Like he's so fast that he
like a rolling ball of butcher knives.
And it's not that he.
Shout out to Christopher Harris for that one.
Yes.
Back in the day.
And it's not that he goes in the contact. It's just he goes full speed all the time. And the second somebody hits him, that force is a lot greater than if he was slowing down or making a cut. So
we got to remember that Debo's going to still be active in the backfield, I think, too. I don't think they're just going to cut that out of the playbook. He may not see as many carries as he did last year, but they are still going to use him in that role. I could even see them using Ayuk in that role a little bit, too, because he's versatile enough to handle it as well.
Yep. And going into the receiver group, I love Ayuk. I was trained for him last year. I'm still trading for him this year. I think he's a value. As much as I love him, I did trade him away a couple days ago.
Chase. I don't even want to talk about it. You shut your pie hole over there, Tyler.
But Ayuk I think has major upside, and that upside could be a top 24 wide receiver. He's very talented, very talented. When you have guys, now why am I blanking? Oh, Fred Warner talking about how Ayuk is the breakout star in camp. That's a dude I'm going to trust because
high praise from your captain of your defense.
Yeah, your captain of your defense and maybe team. And that's another thing. This defense is going to be good, very good, which will create short yardage situations for Trey Lance, who could end up with 10 rushing touchdowns himself. So that's also why I'm out on the running backs. So yeah, I am actually a little back in on Kittle because I think even though he's 28, 29,
he's 29.
There's got to be a healthy season coming for him. I'm really hoping.
I mean, that tantalizing season from a few years ago with 1,500 yards when he set the record, like that was peak Kittle, and we've wanted it to get something close to that ever since. And it's just all
injuries.
He's again another guy that plays insanely physical, especially in the blocking game. Like he doesn't shy away from anything. George Kittle, like he's a maniac.
Yeah, when you got a guy like Elijah Mitchell who's literally just running straight. Yeah, I mean, you got a chance to get blindsided, back of the knee, and all that stuff. So
Kittle's another one of those guys you have to take a look at your team, figure out what you're doing.
One player to watch out for, Danny Gray, who's making plays in camp.
Yep.
Doug, I know you and I are really on this kid.
He's fast.
He's fast. He's a good special teams guy. He's probably going to be the returner, which is always good news for receivers with decent draft capital because they're going to see the field. And then if he shows anything in that return game, they're going to be like, we need to get this kid on the field.
Yeah. One of my favorite fourth or later draft picks. 100%. Him, Velus Jones, and Tyquan Thornton. Give me the draft capital and potential opportunity. Yep. And yeah. So I like that Danny Gray. I roster him in a few of my leagues. All right. So let's wrap up the NFC West with the Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams, who I think are interesting in a couple of different ways. Now, they returned Matthew Stafford. We all know that. They didn't have any changes at the tight end position. It's still Tyler Higbee. Yawn. I don't think he's ever really going to be a thing again. He finished strong, 2 or 3 years ago where he was awesome. Yeah. And then I think it's more of than anything else. But, Odell Beckham Jr. tears his ACL. He's done. He's a free agent right now. A noticeable limp at the ESPYs just a couple of weeks ago going on stage. I was like, oh, Odell's not ready to play football anytime soon. So I don't think he comes back. But what did they do? Sean McVay said he sold his nuts off to get Allen Robinson on that team. They love Allen Robinson. So it's going to be Cooper Kupp, the wide receiver 1 last year, Allen Robinson on the other side, Van Jefferson currently dealing with a knee issue. So that's interesting because they don't have a lot of depth at receiver, right? Tutu, another one of these guys that a team. What is it with the NFC West and second-round receivers? Eskridge, Isabella, Tutu Atwell. Like, is this the curse? Like,
they're fast.
Round? I don't know. So maybe Tutu becomes a thing. We don't know. But the real question for me is in the backfield. So Cam Akers coming off the Achilles. Everyone's dogging his performance because, his yards per carry weren't great. I think the thing about the Rams that not enough people are talking about, and we've talked about it on this podcast before, is the offensive line. So Andrew Whitworth retires. They've got some holes on this offensive line, and that's a concern to me. But I think if Cam Akers is back to 100%, they fed him coming off an Achilles injury, 20 touches a game. They are confident in Cam Akers' capability. Jarrell Henderson is still there, who has shown that, he's another guy that, like Elijah Mitchell, just always questionable and dinged up, right? Like he's never forever healthy more than 5 or 6 games in a row, it seems like. And then they draft Kyron Williams, who James really likes. Great pass blocker. Didn't test well, but if you look at his tape, he looks better on tape than he did in his underwear at the combine running 4.67 or whatever it was. So Tyler, I know you've been off Cam Akers. I'm interested to see, what do you think of this Rams offense? Do you think Allen Robinson has a massive bounce back this year?
Yes. And I've, in a free agent league that we both are in, I paid up to get Allen Robinson. And he's my 5th receiver in that league, but it's a comfortable 5th receiver. I think Allen Robinson's due for a big season. And Matt Stafford is a quarterback that we've always wanted Robinson to have. Finally, year after year, Robinson has had terrible quarterback play. Last year was probably his best quarterback play, but, you had Nagy just wearing that thing down. Nobody wanted a piece of that offense. So he's going into Sean McVay, who, throughout training camp, all we've heard is Allen Robinson's making plays. He's going to be a big part of this offense. I believe that. That to me is a huge boost for Robinson. And you were getting him for 2nd-round picks, early on in the season, June, May. even earlier, like he was so cheap because people thought he was done.
They felt they were so burned by him.
Now his value's a first. I think he's worth a first. So if you can get him for a second still, yeah, go ahead because I think he's going to dominate. He's going to be great. Cooper Kupp still, as much as he had a crazy good season, I think you take 80% off that and he's still going to have a phenomenal season.
I mean,
Kupp,
80% off of that, so he's only 20%? You mean take 20%?
yeah, take
All
20%
right. You take
off.
80%
Yeah.
off, like he might be Tutu Atwell. Like,
Yeah,
sheesh.
that's true. But going to the running back room, for me, I like Kyron. Notre Dame guy. I saw him play.
Oh, of course. There's
It
the
just
correlation. Notre Dame and Tyler.
the issue is it always burns me. It always burns me every time. Every Notre Dame running back, it burns me. So this might end up good. That sucks. He's hurt, but he looks like he's going to be playing some preseason games. That's what the rumors are, is that he'll be healthy enough to play some preseason games, which is what he needs. He needs to get on the field and play so they see what he could be. For me, Darrell Henderson, he is what he is.
He's
and
fine.
if Kyron shows anything, I think Kyron could be the number 2 on this team.
I think Henderson's a free agent after this year anyway.
Yep.
So
And Kyron's still young, which is a plus at running back. And they traded up to get him.
If the Rams bring in a veteran running back, like they brought in Sony
Josh
Michel
Jacobs.
last year.
What if Josh Jacobs comes
I mean,
in
if they
next
trade
year?
for him this year.
Oh, okay. I was saying like next year, say Cam Akers doesn't have it.
No, I'm saying this year, like they might bring in a veteran running back.
Okay, like what if they bring in Kenyon Drake? Like say he gets cut from the Raiders, like that could be a player with speed that they could just use.
Could be nice.
Yeah, because as much as Akers has the athletic profile, I don't think
the Rams will probably do something silly like trade for McCaffrey or something.
Yeah,
the cap is alive.
Yeah, like it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be that one dynasty team where everybody's like, "Oh God, I don't want to face him."
How is this even possible?
Yeah, how did he get all these people? But
dead cap hits in 2024, $150 million.
Yeah, it's crazy what the Rams are.
They've
pulling
got a
up.
window. They've probably got like another
2 to
couple
3
year window.
Yeah.
And then it's really going to catch up to them. And they have no draft picks. Like this team could go like Super Bowl winner, competitive for 2 more years,
and then yeah. Then you really wish you had those picks. So yeah, for me, I'm out on Cam Akers just because of the value you can get for him. There's a lot of what if Cam Akers gets the touches? What if he's 100% again? And with me, I'm willing to take the chance on being wrong. Like for me, give me the value that I got back. He tore his Achilles and he was almost worthless in Dynasty. Like his value dropped off the cliff and then gained it all back instantly. And for me,
it's a wild ride.
That's my option to be like, okay, I've been on that roller coaster. I want to get off.
I think
let somebody else deal with
18 or so in DLF.
Yeah, which is good because he was like top 10 beginning of last year. Yep.
Yeah.
Before he tore his Achilles. But yeah, I'm okay with being wrong. If he dominates, that's awesome because I still like the talent Cam Akers and I want to see him succeed. And we finally have a successful story of somebody tearing their Achilles and becoming successful. Then we can
not Donta Foreman 4 years later.
We can nip that in the butt and finally move on.
We'll see how Marlon Mack does this year too. He's got some opportunity in Houston. So
for me, I'm mainly just out on Akers just because history and the value is still there to where I can get good players.
Yeah, if you're looking at running backs in that similar startup, I mean, if
Travis Etienne.
I was gonna say, like, I'd rather have Etienne and like maybe you add Akers in a pick to get there. Like, I'm okay with that. I mean, I love Cam Akers because I'm a Florida State stan, so it's natural, and I do love the talent. But he's one of those players where it's a range of outcomes. The ceiling could be high, but the floor could be,
and it could fall quick. Like the instant he's not producing in 2 weeks, his trade value drops.
The biggest thing with the Rams is they were so touchdown heavy through the air. You'd think some of that ship has to right a little bit, and that's where I think Akers could regain that value. Could he get 10 or 12 touchdowns? Yes, because he's in a high-powered offense, and I think 80% of their touchdowns were through the air last year for the Rams. So that's got that. Naturally, that balances out a little bit the year after that. It's very hard to sustain that. So I think that's one of the positives for Cam Akers. But again, the thing that people aren't talking about is the offensive line to me. I know he ran behind the worst line at Florida State history. Like, I get that. But this is the NFL. It's a little bit different than the ACC. So I think that enough people aren't talking about the loss of guys like Whitworth and some of the other, the lack of depth at some of the offensive line positions for the Rams.
Last thing I want to say, if you have Kupp and you have a winning window, I'd hang on to him. But if I have an opportunity to get get the world for him due to his last year season, I'm all in.
Would you do like you want to go? Do you think you'd have to do Cup plus to get Jefferson and Chase? Probably, right? Like,
Yes.
but it wouldn't be a lot. Like, you shouldn't have to add a lot to that.
I actually think you'd have to give it 23 first with Cup to get one of those
Really?
two.
Okay.
Which I'm okay with. Because
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm okay with that
yeah.
too. I mean, you're talking about like Jefferson and Chase. Like, good lord, like
Yeah.
give me the youth, give me the, especially with Chase. You know, the quarterback situation is going to be the same
Yep.
for a while. We don't know if Cousins is going to stick in Minnesota, but
I
like
think he
Jefferson
will.
is just an elite player. So even if Cousins doesn't stick, I don't think it matters.
I'd be okay with T. Higgins and a first and a second, like maybe tearing down a little bit, going that route, getting a little younger, getting a pick next year. That's probably the route I would take. But yeah, if I have the opportunity to trade down a little bit and get extra picks for next year, I'm all for that. And like you
I
said,
think moving Cup with a little bit extra to get to those guys in front of him
I
is
would
smart.
100% do that. That's a great idea. So yeah, if you have Cup, that's an option. I'd go out and look to do that. And Van Jefferson, I like the player. Hopefully he gets healthy, but I think he has some sneaky value.
He had some really nice weeks last year.
Yeah.
I picked him up on the waivers in a redraft league and started him a couple times, and he got me double-digit points. And really, that's honestly like all I needed. He's more of a field stretcher than I thought he would be at the next level because he was like the route runner guy, not the speed guy. But he's shown that he can separate and get downfield and win contested catches. So I think that's if you have him on the outside with Robinson on the other side, Cup in the middle, like, yeah, I think they pass so much. And again, this is another division with Arizona and San Francisco. They're going to have to pass the ball a lot. Seattle, who cares? They could run the ball 50 times and win. But, the other two teams in that division, like, they're going to be some shootouts. So we should, see a lot of
fun.
A lot of passes. Absolutely. So that is going to wrap us up this week on the Dynasty Happy Hour. Shout out to Fantasy Points, Trophy Smack, as well as Underdog for sponsoring us this week. So make sure you use all the discount codes and save yourself as much money as possible. The more money you save is the more money you can put into that gas tank, like we talked about earlier, even though you probably don't want to. And I also want to remind you to go ahead and check out Viridian Global if you're looking for some new threads. You need some t-shirts. We got DHH stuff on there for you. And also make sure to check out dynastynerds.com and support our friend of the show, Rich, and his team, and sign up for the Nerd Herd. Use code DHH for 15% off of any subscription. They've got trade tools, so if you like the calculator to kind of gauge where you're at, you can do that. There's an extra Nerd Herd episode, Prospect Film Room, Prospect Scores, and the Dynasty GM. So just lots of really cool stuff over there on Dynasty Nerds. So make sure you check that out. Tyler, any last words before we get on out of here?
No, I will miss you and James next week. We will see if I do a solo, maybe talk about trades.
Was that Chubb room that we talked about earlier? It's just
the lone Chubb.
The lone Chubb.
Yeah, so that's going to be me tomorrow. But hey, next week we'll have the Hall of Fame game to recap. So that'll be fun. But yeah, we'll still have a podcast then. And we are getting into the nitty-gritty, the big-time news. We're going to have preseason games when Doug and James are back, and our hot takes episode. We hopefully might be able to get J-Mike back. If not, we're still going to have it, and we're going to stick by our words because we're going to recap that next time. And also, I want to go over a regular season rookie draft. I want to see where rookies would lie now because I find that very interesting on values.
How values change.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
That will be we got some fun things coming in, and then in season we will figure things out. Maybe Chase and them will be back. If not, we will figure it out.
Possibly
but you know what?
No, just kidding.
Yeah, we will.
Now
we'll definitely be back. We'll definitely be back next week with just the lone Chubb.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us on Dynasty Happy Hour. Make sure you leave us a rating and review on iTunes so we can bump up those charts. Thank you for listening as always. And Tyler, we'll see you next week in his lone Chubb room on the Dynasty Happy Hour.
Just me in a dark room.